Alright guys, so here's what I want to do for the rest of this section. In this video we're going to just go over all of the fundamentals of Sass, variables, importing, partials, nesting, things like that. And then in the next part we're going to build a project. We're going to create a template, and we're going to make it look really nice, and then we're going to implement Sass. Okay, so first we'll create the basic HTML CSS template, and then we'll implement Sass and all of its features. Alright, so we're going to continue working in the My Template folder that we created. We have a SCSS file, and we have the compiled CSS, and we have Koala running right now. So I'm going to create an index HTML in this, just so we have something to look at. Alright, and let's open that up. Okay, so we'll open that up, and let's also open the SCSS file. Okay, so in the index HTML, let's just put in some standard HTML tags here. We'll say My Template, and let's just put an H1 for now. Okay, and we want to link the CSS file. Okay, make sure it's the CSS, not the SCSS, because the browser won't know what to do with that. So let's say style.css, and I think it's in the CSS folder. So let's save it, and then we should be able to open it up. Open it with Chrome, and there we go. Alright, so we still have that blue. So we saw how variables work. Let's create another variable here, and we'll just call it color, and we'll set that to white. And then let's give the body a color, and we'll set it to the color variable. Reload, and there we go. Okay, we might want to change, you might want to have something like the font. Okay, so we'll have a variable called font, and we'll set that to the font family of Arial, and then down here we'll set that to font. Okay, that should change it. So let's take a look at importing and partials. Alright, so in our SCSS folder, let me just grab that real quick. That's not it. Okay, so we're going to, let's see, SCSS, we're going to create a new file here. And remember, partials have to begin with an underscore. So we're going to say underscore, and we'll call this variables.scss. Alright, and then let's open that up. And in here, I'm just going to grab these, and we'll cut them, put them in here, and save it. Okay, now if we go and we save this and reload, we're going to get an error. Okay, and we also get this error that pops up from Koala. And it's just saying that there's an undefined variable background. Okay, it's looking at this and it doesn't know what it is because we deleted the variables that were up here. So what we want to do is import the partial of underscore variables. So all we have to do is say at import, and we should be able to just say variables.scss, and let's save it, and now it's back. Alright, now notice we didn't put the underscore here. If I do that and we reload, oh, that works too, but you don't have to have the underscore, okay, because it automatically knows that it's a partial. Alright, so that's how we can do that. Now you may want to break up your CSS into different files. For instance, maybe header.scss, where you have all the header CSS, footer, main, whatever you want to do really. You can break it up however you'd like. Alright, so now I want to take a quick look at nesting. So let's say we have a nav, and inside there we'll put a UL, oops, and then some LIs. Okay, actually we may want to have a link here. 2, 3, 4. All right. So we have this nav. We actually can't see. Let's change the variable. Let's change the background to white. And let's change the color. We'll just change the color back to black. Okay, just keep it simple. What it looks like doesn't matter. I just want to show you the functionality. All right, so normally if we want to style, let's say the LIs here, what we would do is we'd start with the nav and then UL, LI, and let's say we want a background and some padding. Okay, if we save that, margin. Alright, and then maybe for the UL, we want to take away the list item, the list style, and set padding to 0, margin to 0. Alright, and then maybe for the nav itself, maybe we want the font size, font size 18 pixels. Okay, so that's how we would normally do it. Now with nesting, what we can do is instead of having these styles here, we can actually nest them inside. So we can put a UL here, and we'll grab this. Alright, and then we can put the LI. So we'll grab that. And then we can get rid of this. Save it, and it should look the exact same. Okay, so we can nest styles within each other, just like we do with the HTML. So we can match our CSS structure with our HTML. You see we have the nav, we have the UL, we have the LI, and then we have the link. Okay, we can do the same thing here. And if we want the link, we could go like that, and let's say text decoration none, and set the color to gray. And there we go. Okay, so you can match your HTML structure with your CSS structure, which is really helpful and just clean. It's clean code in general. All right, we can also do calculations. So for instance, let's say for the nav, we want to set a width. So we could set it to something like 400 pixels. Okay, so now it's 400 pixels, and we can actually add here. We can say 400 pixels plus 100 pixels. And reload, and you can see that now it's 500. Alright, so we can use math in our CSS now. Another thing we can do is if statements. So let's say we have a variable in here, and we'll call it style nav, and we'll set it to 1. Alright, and then in here, if we want, we could say if we want to use an @ symbol, and then say if style nav is equal to 1, then we want this to work. Alright, so if we save that and reload, it's the same. Now let's go back and change this to 0. Save it, reload, and now it's not styled anymore. Alright, so we can have logic inside of our CSS, which is really helpful. Another really helpful feature is the extend feature. Alright, so let's go back and let's set this back to 1 so that it's styled. Alright, and let's say we want to have a couple different classes where the backgrounds of these LIs are different colors. Alright, actually, you know what? Let's do the heading. That might be easier. So we'll take the H1, and let's say we want to add maybe a border to the bottom of, let's say, 5 pixels, and the color will be red, and we'll set it to solid. Okay. Now, let's say we want to have different classes for the different colors. So, for instance, we'll have an H1. Actually, you know what? Let's add some other stuff here as well. We'll change the font size. Oh. So font size we'll set to 33 pixels. We'll change the font family to Tahoma. Alright, so that's good. Now let's say we want a class called h1.blue. Alright, and all we want to do here is change the border color. Okay, so we want to change the border color to blue. And let's save that. We also want H1 red. So we want to change that to red. Now, normally what we would have to do is either add a separate class for the other stuff, the font size and all that, or we would have to take this and put that in both of these, like that. Alright, and then we want to change, actually we don't need this anymore. So then we need to change this to H1 class equals red. Okay, and we should be able to change it to blue as well. Okay, we might want more colors as well. Now, instead of having to repeat ourselves with this, we can create kind of a base class for ourselves. So let's say header, and actually let's change it to heading. We can take this stuff, all this except for the color, and we can cut that, put it in here. Okay, and then cut this, and then we can just extend this heading class into here. So let's say at extend and then dot heading. Okay, we'll do the same down here. So that cuts out some code and cuts out repeating ourselves. So let's try and reload, and now you'll see that it's still there. If we change this to red, save it, reload, and there it's red. Alright, so that can be very helpful as well, and it can really clean up your CSS. Now the last thing I want to show you is a mixin. Okay, a mixin is basically a CSS function. So to declare this, let's go up here, and let's say at mixin, and we're going to call this border radius, and these can actually take in parameters just like a function. So we'll pass in radius. Alright, and then we want this to just be border radius, set that to the parameter that's passed in. Alright, you might want to do the other specific styles for certain browsers. Like for Firefox, you could do MOZ, border radius. I mean, you shouldn't have to do this for the most recent versions of these browsers, but just in case, you can do that as well. Okay, now to use this, let's say we want our list items to have a border radius, a rounded border. So we'll go to our LI right here, and to use it, we can just do at include border radius, and let's pass in 20 pixels. Alright, so let's see what that does. Reload, and now you can see that it has a rounded border. Alright, and we can just change this to whatever we want. So let's change it to 5 pixels, and now it has a 5 pixel radius. So we can continually use this mixin no matter what size we want the border radius. Alright, and you'd probably want to put your mixins into a partial, and then we could say import mixins.scss, and then we'll go and create that real quick. So that would be underscore mixins, and we'll just paste that in, save it, and that should still work. Reload. File to import not found or readable. Let's see, let's try it again. You know what, let's delete it and then put it back. There we go. It just didn't register. Alright, so those are pretty much all of the features of Sass. Just very basic. Obviously, when you have a lot of CSS, this is going to be much more helpful, but you can see it basically adds logic to our CSS, which is normally just a static style sheet language. Alright, so hopefully that made sense, and now we're going to work on a project where we implement all of these features.